Sure.
Okay. I have a raise hand. Who wants to start? Oh, go ahead.
I guess since I messed up on the first one. But, all right, well, I had a question, I had a lot of questions, but the one I'll ask is, you know, for a lot of us, Transformers was a big part of our childhood, and I was wondering if you were a child and you watched Transformers, how would you react to it?
You know, actually, it's a wonderful question, because I've noticed when I was growing up that there were a few things outside of, you know, blocks. And or little wooden trains that you pulled, that today you buy, you know, when you're visiting some mountain village. But I think I would have loved it. The way my kids handled it, I was amazed by the amount of time they took to be transfixed by it. So, given that, and being the same mindset, I'm sure I would have been stuck. Not that they're not stuck on videos today, but, you know, we had radio, but I might sound like an antique. You know, we had radio back in those days. Well, let's face it, when I was 7, 10, 11 years old, I had a radio in my bedroom. And the old Marconi, you know, they're that big, with the material behind the carved wood, and switch over the stations to listen to. I was a communist for the FBI, you know, Boston Blackie, the Norths, and a lot of the comedies, Jack Benny and stuff. So that was an imaginative process. But today, I think it's the combination of both. I mean, you have something that your hands can see other than just your ears and your imagination. And I mean, you can talk about Transformers or Legos or any of those other things. Participation, that's, the kids are participating. And I would have loved it. I mean, I would have loved it. I mean, I think of me putting my Ironhide into the trailer, Optimus Prime, and if I were, you know, 10 years old doing that, I mean, I would have loved it. Yeah, sure.
Excellent question. Next question.
So you have been doing Transformers since at least 1984. So with that long time period, my question is, with 2014 and this technology nowadays, how is it much different than back in 1984 when you did it? Anything from back then that may be a lost art today, and anything from now that you like that unfortunately 1984 maybe not have, and you would have loved to have back then?
Well, certainly the memories are there. Excuse me. The memories are there from '84 because it was innovative, and it was a cartoon, yet it was done the first time like that, and you had toys that you could associate with as well. Working in the Generation 1 series, we won't work together. There'd be 10 of us in a room or more sometimes. And there was always a generating feel of inspiration. You were energized by your fellow actors. And I miss that a lot. I don't have the opportunity to do that as much anymore. But certainly my memories always are around the camaraderie that we had as a group and the fun that we had. I don't know if they have the same amount of fun that we had back in '84, but a lot of my friends are still friends from that era. Frank Welker being one. I call him the king. He's the king. Genuine, wonderful guy. So I really think that was one of the differences. I think now, as we've gone into this next generation, 30 years later, or in this case 28 years later, for Transformers Prime, when I discovered how much money they spend on each episode, I mean, that would have been an entire series. But the animation today is superior. I mean, right down to shadows, which you rarely saw in Generation 1. I enjoy watching it with my grandkids, and to see their faces locked, like that. But yet, that was the same for Generation 1. Kids were locked. I was watching a program, a movie, and I forget the name of the movie, but it was really weird. And there was a shot where the kid is watching television, and in the background it's Transformers Generation 1 playing in the background, and it was me giving one of those spiels, you know. And I was caught off guard. You know, I wondered. I said, did it really make that much of an imprint? And of course it did. But at the time, I wasn't aware of that. I was only interested in the fact that, hey, maybe, you know, they're running this on, you know, feature film. You know, maybe I'll get a couple of bucks, you know. Maybe they'll throw a scale at me, which is $110 or something. Sorry, I swayed away from your question. I can't remember the original. Did I answer it?
You did.
Oh, good.
All right, Robbie?
You've been a part of some incredibly long-lasting and beloved franchises. Are there any series out there that you have yet to have the opportunity to be a part of that you would like to?
Well, there's so many now. There was just a handful back in the 80s. And prior to that, before I broke into animation, and it took me a good 10 years to break down that door because there was such a source of talent. And I was talking today that talent was hired back in prior to the 80s for the amount of characters that a voiceover artist could do. And you get paid for one, but you'd have to do 3 additional. So you could do as many as 4 voices in a show and get paid only for 1. If you got paid for the 5th voice, you get paid twice. So naturally, the studios will take advantage of that back and then. Whether they do that today, I don't know. It's very old. But today, there's an opportunity because there's so much more out there, as you well know. Even my TV has, you know, 900 channels or something. When I go through the channels, there's an awful lot of animation, and so plus the fact that there's an awful lot of talent, a lot of great talent. Yeah, there wasn't that many outlets when I was first starting out, and as I said, it took 10 years to break down the door at Disney and Hanna-Barbera and Ruby Spears and some of the other companies. Looking back, wow, it's a long time ago, and today there's so much more.
All right. I have another question. Another general question. Going once.
Can we go again?
Yeah. I'll do one last one if nobody else has anything. Oh, sorry. Okay. Rashawn, go ahead.
You know, almost 30 years later, did you ever think that, you know, Optimus Prime would be such a huge character that you'd still be doing him? I mean, he's...
No, not a bit. You know, to be honest, when I was killed in the 1986 movie that I had no idea why. I've answered this question before, but in all truthfulness, when I was reading the death scene, I was stunned. I said, you know, a lot of things go through your mind as an actor. You'll say, was I that bad? What did I do? What's the reason? I mean, yeah, and you try, but you're going to look for the most negative. And I did. I said, well, you know, I must really suck. This is, you know, I mean, because we had no feedback. We didn't have fan letters we didn't have the internet, we didn't have any source of communication with the outside. If in fact there were fans that wrote letters, we never received them. So there was no gauge, there was no thermometer at all to tell you, you know, what the popularity status as you have today. So, when the opportunity came for me to do a convention in Rochester, New York, and I think that was 1997, I went back and I had to be convinced to go back to it because, quite frankly, you know, I didn't spend any time thinking about it for all those years. And when I went back, I was really surprised at the reception that I got. And it opened my eyes, and that's when I first began to realize that through numerous expressions of gratitude coming from the audience, and in some cases heartwarming and very, very mind-moving. And it was from that point on, so I would say 1997, so it's quite a few years doing the convention circuit. But I had no idea up until that point. There was a kid in New York City, and this was at the very, very beginning, and I've shared this before, but it sticks in my heart. A kid got up in the middle of the audience, and he said, with the New York accent, I forgive myself right now and any other New Yorkers in here that they say, hey, well, don't do that New York accent, because, you know, what are you doing that for? Get out of here. Anyway, this kid got up and he said, Mr. Cullen, I just got to tell you, if it weren't for you, I'd either be in jail or I'd be dead. All my friends, they're either in jail or they're dead. But I came home to watch Transformers. And he's just a young guy. I mean, he can't be 20 years old. And he's a tough little guy. And I just listened to him. If it weren't for you, I mean, for me watching Transformers, just me, you know, you were my father. You raised me. So yeah, that was a whoa. I never forgot that. And in successive moments like that in my career as a voice actor, I always called myself a voice-ician. Hey, you got music guys, a musician, voice-ician. So I think about it all the time, and inevitably at one point or another, there's going to be something very similar to that. Even here today, I've experienced it a couple of times. So it's very humbling, and it's a marker in your life. I'm very grateful for it.
All right, well, if I can be allowed one question, actually, Mr. Cullen. I know that you must get a ton of invitations to other similar events. What inspired you to join us here in Sacramento?
Well, I think what came into play the most was the treatment, and the fact that going back and forth with management and me on both sides. I was asked to pay particular attention to Sacramento. And I was told that you're going to really enjoy it, and that's an understatement because, quite frankly, this is perhaps the best one I've ever been to. I've never been treated so well. I've never met so many wonderful, charming, caring people. And there's a great deal of respect, and the consideration factor is just it's incomparable. And I love Sacramento now. I haven't been to Sacramento in years. I cowboyed not long away from here. I learned steer roping many years ago in Marysville.
Oh,
Yeah, and I've done a few rodeos, and I've been to Sacramento, and I love it, but I've never enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it this time. Hey, I'm staying at a beautiful hotel. I can't believe I'm being treated like this. This is unbelievable. I looked at the price on the doors, on the door, the plaque where you are here, fire escape here, room rate. I went, you better enjoy this, Pete, because there's no time again you're ever going to see that kind of a price on the door that you're paying for. Oh my God. Yeah, it's just absolutely wonderful experience.
We are very glad to have you, Mr. Cullen.
Thank you.
All right.